Welcome to the 2025 Bookathon. Tonight begins a weekend of panels highlighting all the recent releases from Bold Strokes Books. Sandy, our wonderful Sandy, will be post a registration link in the chat in case there's something you haven't signed up for yet. And we have a sale running. Always a good, love sale, love a good sale. Is running all weekend, so please check that out too. The link will be in the chat. And you can also put your questions in the chat as well. This session is called Welcome, where the authors read scenes introducing their main characters. First up, we have Shelley Thrasher. Shelley is the author of 5 novels and an award-winning book of poetry. She lives in her hometown in the piney woods of East Texas. A former college English professor, she enjoys reading other women's books, playing in the handbell choir, working in the yard, traveling, and being with her family and friends. She's been an editor. She was actually my first editor for BSB for 20 years and is currently co-authoring a Nancy Drew type mystery to be published this summer. Can't wait for that. Shelley, take it away.
The title of my reading, that I have little excerpts in my little titles in my book as I go. Getting to know my roommates. Standing at one of my 2 spotless bathroom sinks after breakfast, brushing my teeth, I spot a small, shiny, black-brown bug on its back near my feet. It's wiggling its tail, his legs frantically, evidently panicked. After putting away my toothbrush, I carefully pick up the bug with a tissue, walk outside, and place it on the ground near my outdoor soap stand. Upright now, it begins to crawl, but then starts limping and falls over again. At least it can die out in my peaceful garden instead of inside on a hard ceramic floor. What will its spirit transform into now? On Bali, it's easy to believe all life is sacred, transitory. Already in my garden, I remove my caftan and rinse off the pool water from earlier. I don't stay long, but while I stand there, water gushing onto my back from the fake bamboo spout, a brown and yellow striped snail inches up the rock wall to my left. My kindred spirit must want a word with me, so I shut off the water and, dripping, focus on the beautiful snail's slow pace, its silvery trail. Does it have a fixed goal, or is it simply ambling along, taking life as it comes? I stand still until the small creature inches behind a large banana leaf on the ground. After returning still damp to my indoor bathroom, I leisurely towel off and pull on my colorful caftan again. It's comfortable and one of the only pieces of clothing that's clean after our cruise. Obviously, I didn't do much lounging on the ship. Still thinking about the lovely snail, I pick up the pamphlet from earlier. The Balinese word for snail is cute, picky, picky. And its blurb mentions the saying about slow and steady winning the race. But is that concept always true? The fast and daring usually win most of the races I'm familiar with. That's the American way. Yet the phrase does have its own truth. And here on Bali, it makes sense. The pamphlet says the snail reminds us to embrace a slower, more relaxing pace of life while we're here. And the snail I've just seen embodies that advice perfectly. I put down the booklet, thinking about Grace's aversion to snails as opposed to my identification with them. What does that difference say about my clearly overblown feelings for her? Maybe I'll eventually find out. The snail has obviously made me think about Grace. I'd hoped to get a reprieve today, but no such luck. And that's it.
So, Shelley, since I have a little bit of an edge here, since I know you a little, I can ask you how your personal travels have influenced the writing of this book. Did you go to Bali? Is any of it based on your own experience? Tell us a little about that.
It's almost all based on my own experience. This is probably should have been called a memoir instead of a novel, but I did change it up and you know how you have to do to make things not quite so obvious. So, but it was really a lot of fun to relive the trip, although it had a lot of trauma in the middle in the scene that I read. She's just my main character has Helen is her name. My main character has just been forced to stay in Bali because she has COVID. She found out on the last day. So she's totally isolated in a room. Of course, it's beautiful and she has a private pool, but that was, you know, that took the edge off. But that was my experience. So I just wrote about that.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I'm so sorry that you got COVID. I mean, that's
Yeah.
well, but I also, this is, a part romance too. So I'm interested after the Zoom to hear which parts are fiction and which parts aren't. That'll be fun. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Next up, we have Morgan Adams. Morgan Adams lives in Boston, Massachusetts, with her wife and three rescue children, the furry kind, which is good. I have not pre-read these, so I had a little heart attack. Morgan enjoys being active and outside whenever possible and is a major history nerd. She works full-time as an attorney. View from the Top is her debut novel, and her second novel, A Conflict of Interest, will be released in June. Okay, take it away.
My books so far all take place in New York City, just so everyone knows that's relevant for this chapter. So, hey, we're gonna go to brunch with some friends of mine. Do you want to join? Amina asked, scrolling through her phone as she sipped a cup of tea. Lizzie zipped her fleece jacket to her neck. Damn, I'm just going for a bike ride actually, but next time? A bike ride? Woman, it's like negative freezing degrees outside. Where the heck are you riding your piece of shit bike? Hey, this bike cost me 75 bucks. Lizzie looked at the solid black single speed bike. Its teal rim stood out like a lighthouse in the sea of darkness. It had rusty spots here and there, and it squeaked every time she pushed the right pedal, but she had haggled for it with someone on Craigslist and traipsed all the way out to Bushwick to pick it up. In her eyes, it was the most beautiful bike in the world. She hadn't even really had a chance to ride it yet, but it was her first Saturday since starting her new job, and she figured today was the perfect opportunity. Plus, a ride in the cold winter air was exactly what she needed to forget about what had, or rather had not, happened between her and Darcy last night. I was thinking of heading east, actually. Maybe take this bad boy across the Brooklyn Bridge. Amina shook her head. Hope you have something warmer than that. That wind is going to kick your ass. Lizzie frowned. She hadn't considered the wind coming off the river when she was dressing. The weather app on her phone said it was 40 degrees, and she'd gone with it. Plus, all she had to wear were some leggings under her Adidas soccer pants from high school. She didn't have leg warmers or base layers or whatever the heck they call long johns up here. She shrugged. I guess this will have to do. Amina gave her a concerned look as Lizzie pushed her bike down the long hallway past Hoko's room and out the door. It slammed shut behind her since she couldn't catch it, and she hoped she didn't wake poor Hoko. The woman slept most of the day and stayed awake all night. Lizzie lifted the bike onto her shoulder and began her descent down the fifth-story walk-up. By the time she got to the bottom, she was already winded, but she braced herself for the cold that she was about to spend the day in. She would ride as far as her legs would take her, hopefully all the way to Brooklyn. She hadn't gotten to really see that area since she moved here, and she was dying to get across that big, beautiful bridge and explore. She put in her headphones, put on a random Pump It Up playlist on Spotify, and began pedaling south. Their plan was that she would head down the West Side Highway and swing across the bottom of the island before heading north to go east across the bridge. She had no other plans today, so worst case scenario, she got tired somewhere, hopped on a train, and came home. One of her friends from law school had told her that she needed to see an area called Dumbo, so she figured that was as good a place to start as any. Lizzie mounted her bike and rolled down the long hill in the direction of the Hudson River. The air was cold, but the wind when she hit the West Side Highway was colder. It cut through her fleece jacket like knives, and she knew Amina had been right about her being underdressed. She used the pain to push herself to pedal harder and harder, and found herself wishing her bike had gears to give her legs a break after just a few miles. She ignored the burning sensation in her thighs and rode faster, smiling wide and letting the wind brush against her at her exposed cheek. On her right was the Hudson River. She could see clear to the other side where the Palisades Parkway rose high above the water to greet her. On her left was a sea of skyscrapers. Row after row, building after building, the city poured itself out to her. She lived here. This was her home. These streets, these shops, these little alleys and avenues, they were all hers to explore, to learn, to make her own. She couldn't believe this was her life. The coldness didn't hurt anymore, and she pedaled in a steady, rhythmic beat. But as she rode farther down the west side, her mind could no longer be distracted by the amazing scenery, and eventually her thoughts went back to Darcy Hammond in her beautiful, tailored charcoal gray suit. She thought of her soft, flirtatious smile and wondered how many people ever got to see that side of her. Maybe Lizzie had just been drunk, or maybe she had actually meant something to Darcy. That was the part she wasn't sure about. Darcy had definitely been flirting with her, there was no question about that, but what were her intentions? Would she have actually gone home with Lizzie if Simon, or whatever his name it was, hadn't interrupted them? Part of her wanted to approach Darcy the next day at work, but the other part of her thought that it was a terrifyingly horrible idea. Maybe it's just best to let it be. It had happened, they'd flirted, it was fun, the end. It didn't have to mean anything. Lizzie shook her head and pedaled faster, ignoring the nagging feeling that this thing with Darcy was really never going to mean anything. But it upset her because it already did mean something to Lizzie. She lowered her head to fight against the wind and pushed on. She was making it to Brooklyn today, no matter how cold it was. The end.
Flirting is never the end.
The end.
Lies. Oh, I also always underdress for the weather, even though I've lived here a very long time and have no excuses. So I definitely felt that one. Okay, so this panel is all about character. So tell us a little bit about this character. What was the initial spark? Are they based on a real life person? What's the gossip there? Tell us a little bit about them.
Very similar to Shelley. This is a lot of this book is definitely drawn from inspiration. This character was definitely drawn from baby me when I got my first job in New York City. I did have a crappy bike. I did underdress. I did ride the West Side Highway all the time. And so I definitely drew a lot of inspiration. Her kind of just like naivete. She's definitely like ridiculously overconfident, but like all of that coming from like a place of like youth and ignorance. Like she's never really been shut down by the world yet, right? Like everything is just fresh and new. So um, the way she's seeing the city for the first time and kind of experiencing the first bite at life, is definitely something that I enjoyed and experienced. And so, yeah, I would say Lizzie is a much younger, more naive, cockier version of me.
Great, I like that.
Yeah.
Do you I think that is true for a lot of authors with their debut novel, is that the characters are, partly based on them and kind of some of their own experiences. Do you feel that way about your second book? Are you drawing from yourself as much, or have you felt like, okay, I've kind of done that and now we're starting something different?
So it's still in New York because it is a spin-off of this one. I take one of the minor characters and kind of give her her own, happily ever after, spoiler alert.
Shocked.
But other than drawing from like cool locations that I've been to, the characters themselves, and there's a little bit of, cultural familiarity, I guess, between myself and some of the topics, but no, yeah, definitely different. And the second one, which was actually enjoyable because I felt like I could really like stretch my sea legs a little bit and push myself to kind of develop the characters in new ways, which was fun to do as an author.
Oh, interesting. Awesome. All right, next up we have Lauren Melissa Elsie. Hello, hello. Good to see you again. Laura Melissa Elzey, also known as Audie Nell, is a novelist and autistic advocate. Since childhood, her writing has been inspired by and honored through her passion for her artistic special interests. Elzey's craft was further developed at Scripps College, where she earned a BA in creative writing fiction, as well as the Crombie Allen Award for writing and the Senior Thesis Award for her novella, If Women Were Moments. School Library Journal described her first novel, Boy at the Window, as belonging on the shelves of all libraries that serve high school readers. And Lauren Melissa is also a librarian, which is fun. You now have a mission for it to be in all libraries. Her young adult novels, including Gimmicks and Glamour and Streamline, touch on themes of acceptance and for neurodivergent queer youth of color. Lauren Melissa lives in New York City with her partner and their lovely dog and kitten. All right, take it away.
So I'll be reading from Streamline, which came out last July. And Streamline is about an autistic gamer named Diana, who is known online as Loon. And she must risk building her dreams offline after meeting a legendary girl gamer online. Today, I'll be introducing Loon. So here we go. Or Diana, whichever name. When the sun sets on Saturday, all the non-gamers throw on their newest clothes and head out to spend the night fighting over the Bluetooth speaker and playing beer pong with smuggled alcohol. That same setting sun doesn't make a dent against my blackout curtains. I gaze at the bedroom ceiling, lit up by the glare of my phone. A piano medley of Legend of Zelda songs substitutes for a wake-up alarm. I kick my feet out of bed and toss my phone on the blankets beside me. Guided by muscle memory, I grab a berry-flavored energy drink from my mini fridge. It takes only 3 steps to cross the hallway to the bathroom, and Mom is nowhere in sight. The vintage-style bulbs in the bathroom hurt my eyes a lot less than the awful soft white lights from before. My last shower was 2 nights ago, which means I'm still pretty fresh. So I twist the sink knobs to half hot and 30% cold. While the water heats, I rummage through a drawer. My favorite spa headband with the bow isn't there. I take a long swig of my energy drink as I shove down the annoyance that seizes my shoulders. I must have left the headband in my room, but I'm already in the bathroom and I don't want to turn the sink off now that I've already started my routine. This is why I keep my old black headband in the drawer for backup. It's not satin, but it'll do. Diana, Mom calls from outside the door. Are you getting up? Yes, I shout while pushing back my micro bangs and chin-length hair with the headband. Bleached blonde waves peek out. The split ends warn me that I'm due for another trim. Since Mom hasn't said anything more, I take a deep breath and splash sink water on my skin. I exfoliate, then apply toner and brush my teeth. It takes a full minute to pat dry serum into my face. That's just enough time for my thoughts to wander. I don't want to think about Mom or my last semester of high school or plans for my future now that I've graduated. So I start counting the pats instead. After another sip of my energy drink, I tiptoe back to my room and switch on my purple light strips. No Mom in the hall. The clock's ticking on her official appearance. I wheel my black and red ergonomic chair over to my vanity. The chair was a gift for my 15th birthday 2 years ago. It fits like a glove as I take a seat in front of the mirror. An orange salt lamp sits to my left. A set of lightly scented candles burns to my right. The ring light around my mirror glows a warm white. The urge to pick at my skin rises to the surface. As I glide my self-applied acrylic nails over the dry patches around my freckles, I take a deep breath before applying some moisturizing primer instead. Then a knock on my door interrupts everything. Diana, Mom says, I'm making some dinner. Do you want any for breakfast? I'm only halfway through my energy drink. No, thanks. I'll grab something to eat when I'm done getting ready. I can feel her hesitating on the other side of the door. She must be waffling between letting me be and lecturing me on spending too much time in my room. Thank God she pads away down the hall. Back to makeup. There's tan liquid foundation, followed by powder foundation and concealer. My mirror reflects a lifeless copy of myself. There's no pigment to my skin. My freckles have disappeared underneath the layers of makeup. In a way, I've become a canvas, blank and ready to be made into a different version of myself, a better version. By the time I step away from my vanity, I won't be Diana anymore. I'll be the gaming streamer with over 900 subscribers. I'll be Loon. I smooth on eyeshadow, eyeliner, mascara, and brow gel, and apply my darkest red lipstick. The coup de grace is dabbing a soft brown pencil to all the places where my real freckles hide beneath the blush and foundation. I like my freckles, each speck a piece of the greater constellation on my cheeks. I remove my headband and add a few clips to my wavy hair for flair, faux pearls, rhinestone butterflies, and my signature crescent moon barrette. Diana, Mom yells from somewhere in the apartment. I smother my candles and head to the closet. Back when I had to get ready for school, picking an outfit was a nightmare for me. I'd literally scream in front of my closet or cry tears while burrowed beneath all the hanging clothes. I learned by the end of elementary school that my clothing preferences earned me nothing but jeers from all my classmates. My favorite outfits were shoved into boxes, and I cried over the scratchy polos and starchy jeans that Mom promised would make me more acceptable. Apparently, cutesy outfits went out of style after first or second grade. But I graduated 2 months ago, a whole year earlier than expected. So the t-shirts and jeans are locked up in boxes, and my collection of favorites hangs front and center. Now I've crafted the perfect selection of 2 jackets, 3 sweaters, 5 shirts, 2 skirts, 4 dresses, and 8 pairs of stockings, 1 for each day of the week, plus laundry day. Keeping my camisole on, I push my arms through the sleeves of my gray-blue jacket with crescent moons for buttons and pull on Saturday's white fishnets. A plaid skirt complements the outfit. I'll think about whether I can handle shoes after I eat. In front of my door, I take 3 deep breaths. It's just breakfast, but since it's nighttime, that's dinner for Mom. She invites me to eat together nearly every night. This should be easy, so long as she doesn't bring up my gaming or my outfit or my autism. Thank you.
Oh, that's great. Now I want to, have an intro to Loon to see how they're different. I feel like you need to do this again.
Oh, okay, I will.
Your face was like, oh God, don't ask me to do it again. So let's stay on theme here. I am interested in the ways in which you relate to the character. And it can be either Diana or Loon, depending on which one, is more like you.
Yeah, I relate to both of them. I think that Diana is Loon and Loon is Diana, vice versa. But oddly enough, even though Loon is this embodiment of Diana with all this makeup and online, I think that Loon is actually the more authentic version of Diana than the other way around, which I think most people would assume that once you've got this costume on, you're a different person. And I think I relate to that as well. I relate to feeling like there's 2 versions that people expect of me as an autistic person. They expect me to mask or camouflage my autism a lot. And they assume that the version of me that looks the most acceptable in their eyes is the real version. But the real version of me is the one that they think might be like more bizarre and strange or something like that. Yeah. And so I really relate to that with Loon, although I definitely don't wear that much makeup as she does. But I really relate to her experiences with that and this ever present feeling that the true version of me is not the version that perhaps parents or friends or colleagues want to see at all.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for writing the book and putting that in there.
Thank you.
Please do check out Streamline. The links to all these books are in the chat if you want to grab them. There is a 20% off sale going on right now and all weekends. All right, next up we have Ms. Allie Valley. Hello, hello.
Hey, was that like the best dog, behaved dog?
I
Sitting
know,
on your
right?
lap?
Me too. I need to get lessons. Mine is here like playing with a chew toy and squeaking it, right? The worst possible time.
That's what I was thinking of. Like Nellie would not be that
Thanks.
well behaved.
All right, let me intro you, although you need no introduction at this point. Allie Valley is the author of the Devil series, the Forces series, and the Call series. She's written numerous standalones, which is an understatement. The newest she is working on is The Art of Love. Allie currently lives outside of New Orleans, and when she's not writing, Allie loves working in her yard, fishing, cheering on the LSU Tigers in any sport, collecting umbrellas, which I did not know about you, fountain pens, and antique bookends, and learning new things like installing hardwood floors. All right, take it away.
All right. I am reading from the Devil You Know, which was it came out last year. I'm already thinking of a sequel. This one it will introduce Cain, but in a way that I think is kind of what Cain is, in the sense that she is not only a mobster, but she's also a family woman. She's married, she has kids, so she is at the mall, like any other parent, with her children, and they are shopping for her wife's birthday present, who's coming up. So Kane and the kids filed out into the mall with more guards than they normally traveled with, and as usual, it drew attention to them. She wasn't taking any chances with anything, though. Their businesses were doing well, and that success was supposed to bring peace. It had, until some wrinkles in that plan derailed what she had in mind. The Russian mob, along with an unknown factor in the FBI, were giving her some long afternoons of thinking and worrying. She prided herself on putting puzzles together, but so far, the pieces were elusive. That alone was aggravating, which only made it harder to think about all this rationally. Finding the who of the problems was the first step in eliminating the threat, but so far, they were well hidden. They headed for Saks to find Emma. Her birthday was the next day, and they'd celebrate with the family at home, but Saturday she was hosting a dinner at Blanchard's, followed by a party at their club, Emma's. The private affair would be the first event at the club since the renovations had made necessary by the gun spray that destroyed the club that carried her wife's name. Emma wasn't someone who enjoyed the limelight, but Saturday was her day. Mom, do you think Mama's going to love our present? Hannah skipped next to her, holding Hayden's hand. She is, and you'll have to tell her why you picked it. Lou led them to the escalator, and she was surprised to find Tracy Stiegel, Colombian cartel boss Hector De La Rosa's girlfriend, standing on the second floor landing. Hector's little pet's hatred ran deep, and Kane was sure that if she could get away with it, Tracy would slit her throat with no remorse. That's what she had ordered for Tracy's sister, and in Tracy's eyes, it was unforgivable. It was her fear of the consequences of that move that kept Tracy on Hector's short leash. Miss Stiegel. Miss Casey. Tracy bowed her head slightly, but it appeared more a move to study the children. Family outing? A bit of shopping, she said. She didn't like this woman any more than she did her sister, and that hadn't ended well. Kim Stiegel had played a dangerous game and ended up on the floor of a warehouse in a pool of her own blood. It's my mama's birthday, Hannah said, loud enough to alert the entire second floor. Tell her happy birthday for me, Tracy smiled at Hannah, and Kane could see a bit of heart shining through. Enjoy your shopping. Take care, Tracy. It's become an interesting world. The baby babbled in her ear, grabbed a lock of her hair, and pulled harder than she thought a baby could. Is that a threat? Tracy lost her smile, and her wariness was back. It was like paranoia run deep ran deep in the Stiegel family. It's just advice. Aren't friends, but we don't have to be enemies. Hayden glanced between them and stepped beside her. She loved his instincts when it came to the family. He not only came to her side, but he put Hannah behind him. If only you and Hector could get that small fact through your heads, we could all live in harmony. Have a good day, and I'll see you sooner than you think. Tracy smiled, but it gave her more of a predatory look. The death of her sister had hit her hard, and Kane understood that kind of pain. It was the only reason she hadn't done something about the disrespect Tracy liked to dish out in heaps. Do you ever think before you let the words just out like vomit? Kane placed her hand on Hayden's shoulder when he inhaled deeply. You threaten as if you had the power to do something about it. Perhaps I do. Tracy didn't lower her head, but she did break eye contact first. You should watch what you say around me. Then we'll see each other soon, she said, with the same scowl before laughing. You talk to me like you want to kill me, but we both know there's only one way that's going to happen. Killing Hector will give you your shot, so he might need a heads up. You have children with you, so stop there. Tracy glanced back a few times as she walked to the escalator. It was a sign of weakness which telegraphed Tracy's inexperience. The woman might have been indispensable to Hector, but she was still a guppy trying to swim with sharks. Billy pulled her hair again, interrupting her wasting time thinking about Tracy, so she started walking in search of Emma. She put odds on getting a call that afternoon. Are you causing trouble? Emma asked, taking the baby from her. I was enjoying the morning with our beautiful kids, pretty lady. We missed you, though, so we came to invite you to lunch. She kissed Emma before giving the kids a chance to hug her. Let's eat, and we'll come back and help you pick something. Best offer I've gotten today, Emma handed Billy to Hayden and took Hannah's hand. The restaurant upstairs should be good. You used to love it as a toddler, Emma said to Hayden. You would bang on the windows until you were exhausted. I was always thankful they didn't open, or we would have had to fish you out of the Mississippi. Kane laughed at Hayden's slight blush, which could only be put there by his mother. Her phone buzzed and she shook her head at Hector's name. The cartel boss was still swimming in problems, which was why it surprised her that Tracy was so disrespectful. Hector's call meant Tracy was smart enough to tell him what happened. She understood the position Hector was in. When there were enemies at every gate, making more was an amateur move. Hector owed her for delivering Jerome Rhodes and his father to him. Jerome, really FBI agent Anthony Curtis, along with his father, had destroyed Hector's fields and business. Kane had also wanted Anthony dead, but sometimes it was better to make friends than to pull the trigger herself. Eliminating Hector's main threat should have brought her some goodwill for months to come. But Tracy hadn't gotten that message. Why is he calling? Emma asked. The kids and I were lucky enough to run into Tracy in her threatening ways right before we found you. Do you think that woman was dropped on her head as a child? Emma asked when the kids followed the host to their table. She stopped me too and had the burning need to tell me that Hector was thinking of going back to Columbia. We'll throw him a farewell party if that's true. She pulled out Emma's chair and silenced her phone. Across from them, the agents assigned to her sat with their menus high enough that she couldn't see their faces. It was comical to see these guys intently watching when she had her family with her. What could be nefarious about that? Right now, enjoy the day. That's it.
What could be nefarious about that? In a Kane Casey book, who knows? So I just now realized the irony of putting you on this panel about introducing your main character when your book is the Kane Casey series. So sorry about that. If you are new to the series, hopefully there are some people, please do check out the first, is it The Devil Inside? Is that the first book?
It is.
Okay,
Yes.
good. Thank God for my memory.
This is 8 books later. So.
8 books. Wow, crazy. So tell us, like, what is it like to craft a character across 8 books now, and a novella, I think.
Yes.
How is it different to kind of when you craft a character for a standalone?
This one was it's been interesting because Kane's character arc from the very beginning as to this in this book, if you kind of see in the first book, she's alone. She's, Emma's left and she has her son. She doesn't know she has a daughter yet. So she's much more, I mean, she's affectionate with Hayden, but that's about it. Her world is very narrow in scope as far as who she trusts, who she works with. And then as the books go on, unfortunately in the first book they don't get back together. So I got a lot of email about that. But as they got back together and she's built on her family, she's let Emma's father into her business. She's picked up partners along the way. So she's become more kind of that double-edged, I'm sure the FBI thinks she's a psychopath because she does kill quite a few people, but she is also someone who loves her family, who loves her children, and has become much more vulnerable as we go on. It's when I you start, and then as you start to learn along the way, and all of a sudden now you have to introduce all these feelings. Feelings.
Oh,
Then at first I was like, no. But then I did, and I think it's made her stronger actually. So because the reason she has kind of been introduced to the Russian mob is not from her own doing. It's been because of a family favor that she did, and unfortunately has put them in her crosshairs. So Kane has changed, I think, quite a bit. Even if you knew her from the first couple books and you'd never read any of the other ones, then it's a much different character in this book than in the very beginning.
alrighty. Do check out The Devil Inside if you are new, or The Devil You Know if you have caught up with the rest of the series. Thank you, Allie. Last up, we have Jeanette Years. Hello, hello. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you.
So Jeanette Beers is a queer, non-binary, Philadelphia-based writer, filmmaker, and film editor. They have directed and shot several short film projects and love the art of storytelling and consuming all things queer and romantic in media. In their spare time, Jeanette is an avid CrossFitter and coach, flag football player, and consumer and writer of copious amounts of fan fiction. They love nothing more than being with their wife, daughters, and 2 pups in the great outdoors, making adventures of their own. And I have to ask you, what kind of fan fiction?
Winona Earp.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.
On the way hot train.
If you have a link, pop it in the chat. When
Okay. Yeah.
you want to check it out. And please go
Yeah,
ahead.
absolutely. This is a scene from my book, You Can't Go Home Again. It's introducing the main character, Reagan. And they've just gotten home to their hometown after being injured in the military and kind of having their career cut short. So yeah. Queen City Community Fitness Center. Ray read the sign outside the converted warehouse and sat in their pickup truck, contemplating whether to go in. The alternative was the damn VA Medical Center in Dayton, 40 minutes up the highway. That would be an all-day appointment with the waiting twice a week. They'd done no research on the place. Aunt Marlene let them know about it, and Ray had set up an appointment. It was uncharacteristic, but they trusted their aunt, and the facility looked sufficient, even forward-thinking in its garage door opening. They also like the idea of the physical therapy practice being in an integrated part of a cross-training gym and the fact that it was right in town. Hopefully it was a place to recover, unlike the VA, which seemed to just throw people around and over-medicate them. They hoped it was a place that understood the need for movement and functionality while getting back to a high level of fitness, not just supporting old vets with hip replacements. Not that old vets deserved any less care, more so. Folks who served honorably and grew old and proud of their service that wasn't cut short by a screw up, deserved the best. Ray shook their head and gathered their things. The appointment was already made, and they weren't one to shy away from new things, and they needed help. It was something they were working on admitting, even if motivation to do so was thin. They weren't used to asking for help. The cavernous space stretched across the complex with high ceilings and few walls. It smelled like a gym. Immediately, Ray felt at home. An American flag hung on the far wall between a pride flag and a Black Lives Matter flag. They were used to the military service flags hanging about, but it was a nice change. These flags said something about this space and the owners of it. The lobby they had stepped into was separated with windows looking into the main floor on one side and what Ray assumed was the physical therapy area on the other. Barbells clanged on the floor and music blared over the speakers as class sweated away, lifting and swinging from pull-up rigs along the side. A coach held over the upbeat playlist covering groans and grunts of everyone in their fitness class. It was alive and active, and Ray longed to be a part of it. Do you have an appointment? The receptionist was a 30-something guy with a kind smile and appropriately athletic frame. Not often I see a face I don't know from around town. Yes, Holcomb. They added a smile and made sure their tone wasn't overly sharp. Reagan Holcomb. Ray wasn't one to come off as rude, but was still not used to the informality of civilian situations. They never understood the need for small talk, but didn't mind if others engaged so long as they weren't pressured to join. It was a large reason why they loved the military so much. Sure, there was socialization and many talkative individuals, but when it came to it, the priority was getting the job done. You're with Carly today, the receptionist said, looking up from the computer. The women's locker room is to the right over there if you need, and I could introduce you. Oh, I'm Mike, by the way, if you need anything. God, did Ray hate to see men's and women's locker rooms separated as they were everywhere. They would have to watch for anyone giving them a questioning look regardless of which they chose to use. Not that they ever had the gumption to walk into the men's, but it never failed that someone pointed out that it was the women's room when they were already clearly inside, or stop and panic that they had themselves walked into the wrong room. I'm good. They gestured at their attire and their duffel bag. They'd come already dressed as they did whenever possible to avoid awkward, public gender-separated room situations. To their surprise, however, they turned to find that between the restrooms was an all-gender door sign between the men's and women's locker rooms. The all-gender room has a small changing area as well, not just a bathroom. Mike must have seen that Ray looked or noted their surprise. He didn't seem fazed. Ray followed him into the physical therapy area. As opposed to the barbells and dumbbells, 3 cushioned tables were lined up, various bands attached to the walls, and medicine balls scattered the floor. One patient and physical therapist occupied a table, the other physical therapist standing over them, adjusting and stretching something in their shoulder while they explained their movements, and another patient stood on the platform to the side doing an exercise while their PT crouched down in no goddamn way. Ray stopped in their tracks. Their stare pinpointed on the second physical therapist, Julia Martin. Jules didn't look away from her patient. She never even noticed Ray was there, and Ray stood fixated as they watched her concentrate on the type of movement the young teenage boy was making. She made a slight correction, pointing to his hip, and told him to try again. She was completely in her zone. Nothing else in the world mattered except her patient. Carly, Mike called, your 2 o'clock is here a few early. Ray's gaze was pulled from Jules only when a striking blue-eyed woman stepped into their line of sight. She was holding an iPad and typed something into it before looking up at Ray with a genuine smile. You must be Reagan? Ray stuttered, flustered by the other woman in the room and by the fresh, warm energy pouring from the one in front of them with an outstretched hand. They nodded, and not to be caught being rude again, Ray took their hand in a firm handshake. They were surprised when it was returned, and Carly made eye contact. Not many people knew the value of a good handshake. I'll leave you both to it, Mike said with a wave. Carly gestured to the 2 chairs in the corner where she had just been seated, and Ray followed. They sat, wincing slightly as they bent their knee. Oh, just let me grab a mask. I still wear one in one-to-one sessions. Ray waited while she bopped across the room to grab a paper mask from the box on the reception desk. They brushed off the inappropriate disappointment of not seeing her full expressions, but pulled out their own mask, knowing that even though it seemed like the pandemic was over, it was better to be safe. So I was able to look through your intake form, and I understand your injury, but I'd love to hear more about how your healing has progressed and where you feel you are. Carly held her iPad, but looked at Ray. I want to get the sense of your goals. What do you hope to get? What are the things you miss? That sort of thing. Ray nodded, but didn't say anything. Goal? I want to get my damn career back. Carly watched them expectantly, almost like a psychotherapist, but it was different. After being tossed around to multiple VA therapists who seemed to treat Ray as another check mark on their daily list, they didn't want to be a check mark here. They wanted to get away from the VA. This was already a whole new style of attention, and while they didn't like attention in general, this seemed to have a purpose, which was a refreshing change of pace. As they stared back, their frustration was somehow diffused by the caring look on the physical therapist's eyes. Likely an element of her training, but effective nonetheless. Better than all the others Ray had seen before her, so might as well give it a shot and see if she could help. Finally, Ray spoke. Compound fracture of the tibia and fibula. I I looked this up. Nail through the tibia and 3 screws on top of dealing with scar tissue affecting range of motion. I had a non-union complication, so that was another procedure, and two adjustment of 2 of the screws, which set me back another 3 months on top of the 6 months it was already taking for recovery. Wow, you really know the details, Carly replied. But what are your goals? That's the most important thing after all, the reason you're here. Ray clenched their jaw. They sighed softly. This time would be different.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So I've been asking folks how they relate to their main characters, but I'm going to ask you what aspects of your character are so different from you that you found it difficult to write?
I worked with a lot of people in the military, particularly people who are dealing with injuries and post-traumatic stress and things like that, doing filmmaking workshops. And I really wanted to tell one of those stories, but I obviously really wanted to take really great care with that since it isn't my experience. So I had been around it so much that like I knew a lot of the details, but it is very different from my life experience. So it was a nice, interesting and challenging thing to do to write somebody with a very different life experience than me.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that was a great intro too to that aspect of the novel. You get a sense of kind of what they're dealing with and going through.
Yeah.
With the VA. So thank you, everybody. If you guys want to just jump back really quick, we are unfortunately out of time. Please do check out our sale, 20% off select ebooks and all these lovely authors' books. The direct links are in the chat, but the sale page will also take you to all their books. Next up, we have a discussion panel on crafting genuine characters. Tonight is all about character. So please do join us for that one coming up in just about 10 minutes. And I will see you there. Have a great night.
Thanks, everyone.